Hello and welcome to TidyX episode 65. TidyX is a screencast where we go through and explain how our code works. My name is Ellis Hughes and you can find me on Twitter at Ellis_Hughes.
And my name's Patrick Ward. You can find me on Twitter at OSPPatrick, and you can find the screencast, of course, on Twitter at tidy_explained, or hit us up on Gmail, tidy.explained@gmail.com. Open an issue on the GitHub repo if you feel like it, or you can like and comment on the YouTube channel. Either way, there's four ways to get in touch with us, four ways to ask us some questions, or maybe send in your untidy, messy data, which is what we're going over again today, and get some ideas. The lines are open, though. Lines of communication are open.
Exactly. And don't forget to subscribe.
And subscribe.
We appreciate all the subscriptions. All right. So episode 65. What are we doing this week, Patrick?
Yeah, so we are piggybacking on last week where we had some what we'll call ugly Excel data that existed on multiple sheets. And it was data that is kind of what we would normally see maybe in the sports world, in the medical world. It's kind of how people write Excel files. And last week, what we did was I took that data set and that ugly data set, and I created my approach to turning that into a sort of tabular data frame form that could be analyzed downstream. And so that was my approach. And Ellis and I have slightly different approaches to this. Some of it is like how we approach things, maybe like what we've learned in the past, or mine are probably just a lot of bad habits because I'm self-taught on all of that stuff, all the coding stuff. So last week was mine. This week is Ellis's. I'm sure it'll be much more elegant and easier to read. But either way that you do it, we'll get to the same result.
Exactly.
And that's the cool thing about R, is that there's many ways to kind of scale the mountain, but everybody usually ends up at the top.
Yep. All right. Yeah. So I don't have anything prepared this week. I thought what would be interesting for folks is to see us talk through the thought process as we were approaching it, because typically you get to see after the fact. We've already kind of thought through things for a while, and this week I thought, what might be fun is, having Patrick ask me the questions as I'm working through it, and give you, hopefully end up with the same data set. So I'm going to share quickly the screen with Patrick so he can see what we're talking about, and then we'll quickly go over the Excel file that we have. So, and sharing screen too. All right, share. So Patrick can now see what we're seeing. So this is the data set that we have here. And so what we called this last week is there's this upper left-hand quadrant where they have like the vitals, so like the summary information about the player. So we're, and then below that there are basically two tables of an activity and then some information about that activity. And this is a pretty common format that you'll see people organize things in. It makes sense visually to organize it in this way. Programmatically, it's frustrating to work with, but I totally understand why people organize it in this way. And then you'll also see at the very bottom here, we have two sheets, actually. So we have two different players that we have to work through, but similar formatting. So we know that we don't have to recreate the wheel when we do this. It's just that we're going to have to write it in such a way that it's flexible to handle both situations, because we don't want to have to redo it multiple times. Yeah. All right, so let's move that off to the side, and we will get going on this. And so I have some pre-populated stuff because we're always going to be using these no matter what project you're going to be dealing with Excel data with. So tidyverse, of course, for our data manipulation needs. ReadXL, which loads, my computer is freezing, there we go. ReadXL, which is a handy dandy library for reading Excel files, and then lubridate, because we know we have some date time stuff inside of our Excel file that we're going to have to parse through later. Normally I would go through and have the actual path. Here I'm just being lazy and doing a file choose so that it'll pop up a little.
It's the heat. It's making you lazy today.
Exactly. So we've got our ugly data file now. So now we have the path to our Excel file. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly, so there's a function in ReadXL called Excel Sheets. and I can call that on a path, and I'll call that on Excel file. And what that does is it lists the sheets that exist in our data set. So I know now that I can loop over these, and because they're the same format, I'll just have to write a function that accepts the file path and the sheet name that I want to be grabbing information from and suck all that in. And so we'll call that sheet, or yeah, let's call that sheets. Descriptive names are important. All right, so let's read in the first sheet, and we do this with ReadXL. We have the path being Excel file. And the sheet we want to be reading in is from sheets. I'm just reading the first one, just assuming that that is representative of the data. And I'm just going to call that dat because I'm now going to follow bad practices. So now we have this data set here. So one thing, excuse me, by default, is it's going to assume the top row is column names. I don't actually want that. That's actually useful information. So what we can do is we can say, where is it? Call names is false.
There you go.
And now when you do that, it reads it all in without assigning a column name. So I just have my raw data in a bad format, but it exists right here.
It just for anybody that's following along there, when he's inside of those parentheses, if he hits the tab button, that's how he gets the arguments that
comma
he just
tab.
saw. Yep, there you go. So sometimes people
learned.
don't know that, but it's super useful.
It's so useful because I forget argument names all the time.
Exactly, all the time.
Like just because there's so many functions and people have different ways that they, there's a ton of developers that are contributing awesome stuff to the world of R. So let's not. It's hard to remember the different semantics for each programmer. Right. That thankfully our studio came in and they're like, all right, we're gonna have these autocompletes, and it makes it a lot easier. Alrighty, so first thing I want to pull out is the player vitals, which is this upper left-hand section. And so what I know is that it's going to be a chunk, and then there's going to be an empty NA line. So what I can do is I can go from 1 to when, so let's call this vital rows. It's going to be 1 to the first case of NA. So we will do which is NA in the first column of dat. So I'm going to use the double square braces, and this is going to pull out the first column of dat, which you can see here, and I'll do is NA, so that'll tell me true or falses, and then which will pull out which locations they exist. And I'm going to pull out the first location. So the vital rows are from 1 to 5, which matches these locations here, except we actually want to move back 1 because we want to get this last column here, which is 1 above the NA. So we have these vital rows here. So now if we call dat vital rows in all the columns, there we go. We're already partway there. Okay, but now we have all this extra stuff that's floating around here. But I know it's only going to be in columns 1 or 2, so I can be lazy and just select 1 or 2. See, I swear I can type things. One and 2. Boom, there we go. But this is still kind of an ugly data frame format. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to call an unlist. Or no, what I want to do is on column 1, I'm going to make a dat vital rows. On the second column are the items there. I'm going to do an unlist on those to get them as their individual values, and then I'm going to do a set names on that for the first column. And so what this is going to do is going to create a vector So right, we have this vector here, and then it's going to set the column names to be the values that are in this column here, or in this, yeah. So now we end up, okay, but oh, I have to call unlist on that too. So we're double unlisting. So now we have the vitals. For the player. So your player name, Aaron Jacob, height 187, weight. But this is still kind of ugly. So we're going to then convert this. Let me think about this for a second. Did it make sense to convert it like this? Or would it make sense to leave it as this longish format here?
Well, do you want to do you want me to throw you do you want to do a phone a friend and
Sure,
let me tell you how I did it was I think I had each one of the vitals in their own column, and they were repeated in long format with each of the training activities.
Yeah, so let's just do that then.
Yeah.
So there we go. So I wrapped it in DataFrame. No, that's not what I wanted. Matrix?
Or as matrix?
No. Gosh, I forget. I think it's data.frame. Let's wrap it in a matrix on this first one here, and we're going to set it to be n row is 1. That way it'll automatically make it wide. Let's run that. Yep, so now it's wide. And then, because if we wrap it then in a matrix, or in a data frame around the matrix, it'll respect that wide format there. So now we have, let's highlight the right stuff. There we go, we have a data frame of that. And then we want to say, I think we can do set names on this. Keeping that unlist on those. There we go. Now we have a data frame where each column is a player number, height, weight, years. And then I'm going to call in library Janitor. Apparently I don't have it installed, so I'm going to quickly install that. And so what this does is it allow me to clean up the names very easily. And I think I have an idea for how I'm going to be dealing with other stuff later. So there we go. So I've now got Janitor. And then we're going to just call clean names. So now we have a nice names for our player information, vitals. All right, so now we've got our vitals handled. In a somewhat generic. So whenever I'm approaching problems, I always try to think about the most generic case I can think of. I don't want to solve for the specific problem I have. I look at the problem I have and ask myself, okay, how can this apply to a larger set? Yeah. So that way I don't have to come up with a custom solution for each time I'm dealing with this. I come up with the solution once and then move forward. And then come up with the cases that are outside of that. All right, so now we've got our vitals. Now let's get our fitness data set. And so that is going to be any cases after this first NA. So we can actually add that into here. So let's call this workout rows. And this is going to be cases after the NA to any cases to the length of dat. So let's put that in there and row dat. So now we've got our workout rows, which are 6 to 14, right? So I can easily get that information out by, but I'm just being lazy and copying and pasting here. We're going to call these the workout rows. We don't want any specific columns at this point. So these are the workout rows that we have here. And so as you can see here, the first row kind of indicates the workout that we have. Then it's date, or the sub information, and then it's information specific about that workout.
It's interesting. It changed your dates. I feel like in the original DAT file, they were like October dash 14 or
so yeah, they were this format.
they're that. Yeah. Okay. There you go. And then I feel like when you read it in,
it's now these numeric.
Yeah, but
So
they weren't.
so I think it's because you set them to be date or
Maybe.
text or something
Oh,
like that.
that's right. That's right. Yeah,
You
yeah,
specifically
yeah.
set them. I let ReadXL read it in, and so these
Oh,
are
okay, that's
these
what it
are
was.
so the way that date objects are sorted is actually a numeric object, and what it counts from is either the number of seconds since the epoch or the number of days since the epoch. And the epoch is based on the software itself. So like R's epoch, so R's like zero date is I think January 1st, 1970. In
Yeah, it was right. Yeah.
Excel, it is January 1st, 1900. Why they picked that date, I don't know. It's rather arbitrary.
Yeah.
But so this is actually the number of days that have elapsed since January 1st, 1900.
1970.
1900.
Okay, it's reading
because
in
it's from
the
Excel.
Excel. Yes.
It's from
Okay.
Excel
Yeah.
here.
Yep.
These are because things got foobar. And so this would be a case where I'd probably go back to the Excel file, convert them to a character string, and like demand that they're accurate.
Well, which is weird because R did read them as a character, but they're listing it. So that column is a character, yet it's listing it in like scientific notation.
So what I think also this happened is if you look at this, I think this is it's seeing it as a date.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's seeing these as dates or
So
times.
you could change that format in Excel.
You can either change it in Excel or we can try to handle it here too.
Yeah.
I don't think that will be, that I think would be like a post processing step. I don't want to worry too much.
Yeah.
Right now, I want to try to keep
Yep.
this not too long since we're already 17 minutes in. Thank you all for sticking with us. All right, so now I'm going to just try to convert this into a format that we can then work with. So I want to identify which columns map to the workout. And so the way I think I'd do that is I do workout calls, and then I would identify where they're not an A. So is not an A for the first row of dat workout rows, the first row of that, and then I think I will call an unlist on that. So that will then turn it into a nice vector, and then I want to find all the cases that are not an A. What? Why are you doing this to me? Oh, because I need to call that. So now I've got all the rows. So what I did here is I forgot a comma, so it was trying to select the wrong column. So all right, so now I go to those, call the unlist, convert it into a nice vector, find the not an A locations, and then I will do a which. So these are the locations of the workouts. So let's call them workouts. And those are the workouts are jogging and swimming. So now we're going to pull out the table for each workout. And so workout tab, and so now I'm going to generalize again and try to identify which columns I want to be using. So I want to find the NAs after that first, up until either the end of the column or sorry, I'm trying to think this through. I want to identify, okay, up until swimming or until the last column.
Yep.
Whichever one exists. So like for jogging, it should look
3 columns.
3 columns over. So I want to identify that. So I want to, shoot, I'm having a mental block right now. What would I do? Actually, no. So we know let me think about this a different way. We know that it's these first two columns here that are always going to be the column, the data sets here. So rather than doing it this way, we have our fitness data set here. I'm actually going to say I know that the fitness call names are going to be in the first two rows. Fitness 1, 2.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to grab those guys, then do a T to convert it into, or this is a what's that?
Transposed it.
Transpose.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to use a or a fill. So fill, we've used fill in the past, so I'm going to use that to fill NAs down.
Yep.
Oh. Let's convert this into a data.frame because it is.
Yeah, transpose turns it into a matrix all the time.
Yeah, thanks transpose.
Yeah, there you go.
And then
You might want to call the name of this variable you're creating, call names instead of mains.
Yeah, probably. That's probably what
okay.
I want to do.
Yeah.
All right, so now I've got yogging date. So I've got like a column name and then the secondary column name. And you could also expand this to multiple column names, because now what I'm going to do is I'm going to call a unite on call or on everything.
This is good. Unite isn't one that we have used. We haven't used much before. Maybe not ever.
So we've used unite.
Maybe once or twice. Can you go over what it's going to do?
So what unite is going to do is I'm going to pass it the columns that I want to be binding together, which are columns 1 and 2. Mm-hmm. And it is going to then... Here, just a sec. Oh no, this is the new column. So this is called names. The triple dot is the columns I want to be merging together, which is everything. And then there's sep. So sep is a separation. Here, because we know that they're like super simple, we can keep it as the basic, which is just an underscore. However, you might sometimes want to use a more complicated one, like a I don't know, a custom like 5 underscores, so that if you want to separate it later,
a comma, something,
whatever uniquely identifies your join. So here we have our fitness column names. So yogging data, yogging duration, yogging distance, swimming date, swimming duration. I'm also now going to just pull out call names, because that's what I want to keep. All right, now I want to get the fitness dat, which is now going to be those column names removed. So that's fitness less columns 1 or rows 1 and 2. And now I'm also going to do call names fitness dat is going to be the call names I had. So now if you look at fitness stat, hey!
Oh, look at that.
It actually is useful. So now we're going to do some pivoting to make it even more useful and more tabular. So we're going to turn that into long, not log. Fitness dat, we're going to do a pivot. Pivot longer. Longer I can type. The calls are everything. So I'm just gonna see what happens with that.
Pivot out longer.
I am just struggling typing right now.
There you go.
So what happens here? All right, so now we've got jogging date and duration.
Yeah, that looks pretty good.
So now we're gonna do a separate, yes, on the call name, and we're gonna separate on underscores, and we're gonna separate it into workout and detail.
Yeah.
So now we end up with jogging date this date. Jogging, duration. Some ugly descriptor here. Jogging, distance, 6.2. We want to add, actually, no. What I forgot to add in here is we need to add a unique identifier for each.
Yeah. So the way that I had it would have been jogging. How would I had it? I had it as jogging, date, duration, distance. So the column was workout. It might have been jogging, swimming, whatever. But then it was, because right now you have like basically a chunk of three.
Yeah, so what I think I need to do is I need to get the unique call or the workout names.
Yeah.
So this should get me the Unlist, unique, set diff, NA. So this is now going to remove the NAs from, so the workouts are swimming and jogging. So what I would want to actually do here is rather than pivot on everything, I want to do a loop. So I'm going to do a map DFR. Yes, map DFR on workout. Function X, or no, let's call that W for workout. I know I'm following bad practice here, but I don't, whatever. Now we'll do starts with W. So now what this will do is, so say W is the workout jogging, right? So now it'll loop over those, grab the cases where it starts with jogging and do the separation. So that way it'll only grab, we want to select starts with W. Then do pivot longer for everything and separate. So now we get, I don't know, that still doesn't solve the problem.
No, yeah.
We want to add a mutate IDX. So this is going to be the index 1, 2, and row. Yeah. And then here we keep it with starts with W. So now what this will do is it'll select only the jogging. It'll add an index row for add an index row, right? And then we can do a pivot longer on that. So now it keeps the index, we'll do separate, and then we'll do a pivot wider on, what is it called? Detail. So the names are from detail, and the values are from value. So now we end up with this long data frame where we have the workout, the date, the duration, and the distance. So it's basically, we did a lot of work to just like pop it over, but at least now we know that it's like always going to be accurate.
Yeah, that's good.
And then we'll remove the IDX because we don't need it.
Yeah.
That was just a vanity thing. And then we can probably filter any cases where is not, we want the cases where date, duration, and distance are not NA. So date, let's worry about that later.
Yeah, really, you just want the cases where date is not NA, because they wouldn't have a duration or distance on days without a date, right? It's basically saying that they didn't work out that day, but it is possible to have a date and someone, let's say, forgot to record the duration of the training, right?
So let's filter, any cases where it is not NA date.
That'll work,
Because otherwise it's also not useful. to not
Correct.
have date. We've decided that date is required. So it's going to map over every workout, pull out this information, and bind it all together. Workout dat long.
There you go.
So now we've got our swimming, our date,
Yay.
duration, distance. And so now we can also do a cbind, or no, bind calls on our
vitals. What was it?
yes,
vitals?
our vitals.
Yeah, vitals.
Vitals and our workout
Dat long.
So there we go. Aaron Jacob, height 187.
That's a table right there, huh? Look at that.
There we go. And so this is the player data.
Yep. And so that's player 1. So now you literally just loop it over your sheet.
Yep, map df. So now we'll compile it all together. So map dfr over sheets. Or yeah, I called it sheets. Function s for sheets. We're going to then copy this information, drop it in there, but we're going to clean it up and generalize it. So let's call this all player data. So we're going to read in the Excel file for the sheet S, no column names. We're going to identify the vital rows and workout rows, pull out the vitals, get their fitness data set pulled out as well, pull out their workouts, get the fitness columns, merge it all together, and get our player data, and then we're going to return the vitals binded with the workout dat long. And here we go. Now we have the same data set that Patrick had.
Yeah, look at that. That's pretty cool.
Workout, swimming here, and then we can go into like cleaning up the dates.
Yeah, all the other stuff.
So then we can do things like, and this is like your standard. We can maybe do this next week, where you deal with this ugly,
the weird date thing.
Yeah.
Or the weird time thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is how I would start approaching cleaning up this data set and organizing it so that I can actually do something with it.
I guess my one question is, for the date column, why wouldn't, like what I did was set these explicitly in the ReadXL function to know that this was going to be a date. Why wouldn't you?
So a couple reasons.
Is there a reason? Yeah.
One is this situation here where it actually was NA for you, because it tried to convert this into a date. Because if you tell ReadXL that it's going to be a date column, it's expecting it to be a date column for Excel.
Okay. Yeah.
At least that's how I understand it. So what I would rather do is do this. Well, let's do a quick all player data. And then just do a mutate, and I would probably do something where, let's call it date, if is.na as numeric. So this is probably a dumb way to do it, but this is going to check to see.
Yeah.
Let's use there. So no, I want to use the dumb version, the if else. Well, so the if else from dplyr is really smart, and it checks to see whether they're all the same type, which is usually a good thing, but not in this case. So I'm going to check to see if I can convert these to numeric. If it can, it's happy. It's going to just call the standard as.date on the as numeric date, and we're going to set the origin, not the epoch, to actually 1899 1231. That's weird, but it's that is what you need to do when you're working with Excel. Otherwise, we're going to call looper dates month, day, year on date. And so this should now, they're all NA. Awesome. So I don't know what I'm doing. All player data, date, month, day, year.
You got, yeah, so those two. Because those aren't numeric. You're turning the character into numeric. I see. Yeah.
I think I remembered what happened here is...
Nope. Another character.
So I think it has to do with the fact, and this is like I wrote a blog post on if else. The way that it behaves is it converts states into these weird objects because of the way that if else was programmed. You should definitely check that out. That's on my blog, thebioengineer.github.io.
There you go.
On that, but we will. Let's deal with that on another date where I've actually had a little bit of time to play with this.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. Either way,
35 minutes, so I don't want to keep people too long.
Either way, we ended up in the same place, two different ways. We did, while we used two different approaches or two different coding, approaches. We did take the similar approach, which was we built our initial we sort of decided to understand the lay of the land by figuring out one sheet. And then I wrote a for loop. You used map DFR, but either way, we got to the same place. But we started by saying, okay, let me figure this out for one sheet. And once I have it for one sheet, I'm just going to copy and paste that into a loop, which map DFR is as well as for loops. I'm going to paste that into a loop, and I'm just going to let it run. And so that was a similar approach, which two different ways to get to the same result, but the key takeaway is probably whenever you're dealing with problems like this, chunk it down to a very simple type of first pass at things, and make sure you get your bearings correct before you dump it into something bigger, because sometimes looking at those for loops can be overwhelming, or you're like, whoa, what's going on here? So get your ideas straight first.
Exactly. Yeah, break it down into easy biteable chunks. Don't worry, don't go, oh my gosh, there's so much to do here. You know how to do each one of these steps. We've covered all these steps in the past. It is just breaking it down into bite-sized pieces that then go to support the bigger ideas.
Correct.
All right, and with that, I think we can call it. See y'all next week, where we explore this maybe a little bit more, or we'll move on to the next thing. We'll see.
Yeah.
With that, my name is Ellis Hughes. You can find me on Twitter at Ellis_Hughes.
And my name is Patrick Ward. You can find me on Twitter at OSPPatrick, or you can find the both of us on Twitter at Tidy_Explained, or you can hit us up on Gmail, tidy.explained@gmail.com. Feel free to go to the GitHub repo where we have all the scripts, and you can open up an issue and drop some comments, questions, examples of dirty data that you might be having problems with, and we can see if we can sort it out. Or you can certainly subscribe on the YouTube channel and also drop your questions there. We've gotten lots of great questions from YouTube that have turned into episodes of their own. So maybe one of your questions could turn into an episode.
Exactly. Thank you all so much. Keep on exploring your world.